Hey, you guys. So, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've already been subscribed. If not, hit the subscribe button. But I decided today that I'm going to start a new segment on my channel, and it's basically true crime and makeup. I have a true passion for makeup as well as a true passion for true crime. So, why not combine them? Take a page out of Miss Bailey Sarian's book. And yeah, so let's get straight into this video. So the floors and walls were covered in blood, indicating a prolonged, gruesome attack. Side note, doing your browsing talking is very complicated. So when the police entered the home, they were met by a bloodbath. The victims had been beaten, stabbed, and shot execution style. The 3 surviving children were left for dead, suffering deep stab wounds and head trauma. At first, the detectives suspected a gang-related hit, as Cecil Dotson Sr. had ties to a gang. However, the brutality of the crime scene and the presence of the young victims didn't typically match gang violence. So let's touch on the victims for a second. So the victims were Cecil Dotson Sr., who was a 30-year-old father. Marissa Renee Williams, who was 27 years old, and she was Cecil's girlfriend. Hollis Seals was a 33-year-old friend of Cecil's. And I hope I'm saying these names correct. And then there was, I don't really know how to pronounce it, Shindri Robertson was a 22-year-old friend of the couple as well. The children that were victims was Cecil Dotson Jr., who was a 4-year-old. It was Cedric Dotson, a 2-year-old, which was Cecil's other son. And then there was also a 2-month-old. And it didn't really specify on whose child that was, but a 2-month-old was also involved in this very, very horrible attack. Once they found the victims in the home, they sent over the bodies to the coroner's office and the surviving 3 children to the hospital. Now, once the coroner started doing their autopsies and things like that, they discovered that Cecil and the adults were shot multiple times close range. The murderer used whatever he could find to kill them. The surviving children, like I said, they had been sent to the hospital. And CJ Dotson had multiple stab wounds, and one of the children had a knife stuck in their skull because of how bad the killer attacked them. So, the investigation. So, police combed through Cecil Dotson's background, kind of, interviewing friends, family, and gang associates, because according to documents, he was associated with a gang. Then, out of nowhere, a shocking revelation emerged while they were doing their investigation. So, one of the surviving children, Cecil Dotson Jr., despite the injuries that he had, he was able to speak a little above a whisper, and he identified the killer as Uncle Junior. Okay, so Uncle Junior was Jesse Dotson, which was Cecil Dotson Sr.'s older brother. The little boy described how Jesse shot and killed his family out of complete rage. Okay, so who was Jesse Dotson? Jesse Dotson, early life and his criminal background is kind of short. I really couldn't find too many details on everything, but he was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, alongside his brother Cecil. So, unlike Cecil, Jesse was known for his violence and his long criminal background. He spent much of his life in and out of prison. And in 1994, he was convicted of second-degree murder after killing a man during an argument. He had just finished serving a 14-year prison sentence before being released in early of 2008, just months before this brutal massacre took place. Time to bring out the palette. Okay, so after he got released from prison, he was pretty much jobless and couch surfing. And if you don't know what couch surfing means, it's kind of like jumping from friends' couches, basically. And despite his violent past, nobody really thought that he would be capable of committing the massacre that he did. So on the night of the murders, Jesse and Cecil got into a very heated argument, and Jesse proceeded to pull out a gun and he shot Cecil right there. But instead of fleeing the scene, he didn't want to leave any witnesses. So that's when he turned his anger on the entire family, children included. So immediately he shot, stabbed, and beat Cecil's girlfriend and the two friends to death. Like, that was his first stop, where the other adults in the home. And so after he finished murdering the adults, he turned his attention to the children, realizing that they could identify him. So he used knives, blunt objects, and extreme force to stab and beat the children. At this point, his only goal was to not have any, and I do mean any, witnesses. After he finished this massacre, he fled the scene thinking that there was no witnesses left alive at all. But with CJ's testimony, police quickly turned their attention to Jesse Dotson, who would be seen at the house by other people right before the murders took place. So 4 days after the murders took place, police found Jesse Dotson. They located him at a relative's house, acting completely normal, as if nothing had happened. He didn't even try to flee Memphis, which proved to detectives that he thought he had killed everyone that was in that house. So when police finally brought him in, he initially tried to deny everything and blame everything on gang violence. However, detectives spotted inconsistencies in his story, and after hours of interrogation, he finally broke and he confessed to the killings. His confession shocked even the seasoned detectives that was covering this case. They had never seen such brutality from one family member against another. Jesse was charged with 6 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of attempted murder for the surviving children, and then multiple counts of aggravated assault and child abuse. Prosecutors immediately announced that they would be seeking the death penalty. So, after 2 years of preparations for this case, in 2010, the trial finally started. Prosecutors had an overwhelming amount of evidence against Jesse. They had his own confession, the key witness, which was the son of Cecil's testimony, pointing him as the killer. Also had the crime scene evidence, such as fingerprints, the guns, knives, and blunt objects that were used in the massacre. And then they also had doctors come in and describe the mental state and the injuries that the surviving children had obtained. So let's talk a little about Jesse Dotson's defense. So I understand that they're just doing their job, but I mean, it's like, come on. Really? They basically tried to say that he was coerced into confessing about the crime, and then they also tried to say that it was gang related and the gang was framing him for the murders. Like, be so serious. So this little boy just randomly decided that he wanted to be a part of the framing. It doesn't make sense. So only after a few hours of deliberation, the jury came back with the verdict of guilty on all charges. So in November of 2010, after the trial, Jesse was sentenced to death for all of the murders. And so he received 6 death sentences for each murder. Then he received an additional 6 life sentences for the surviving children. So the judge on this case called this the most horrific crime that he had seen to date in the state of Tennessee. The victim's family wept in the courtroom as they were definitely very sad about the situation, but also happy that justice had been served for their deceased and injured family members. Okay, so let's touch on where he is now. So right now, Jesse Dotson is currently on death row at Riverbend Maximum Security Institute in Tennessee. Since his conviction, he has filed many appeals and they've all been denied. So his execution date has yet to be set. And so he just remains in prison right now. He's considered one of the most infamous death row inmates in Tennessee. Jesse Dotson's crimes are a true and terrifying reminder that violence can come from within the family and how one man's rage led to the worst mass murder in Memphis history. After the trial, the surviving children were placed in protective custody. They were eventually adopted by family members who shielded them from being in the public eye altogether, which honestly, I can say I do not blame them because, like, let's be really for real. Who wants to be, remembered or attached to something so horrendous for the rest of their lives? And that's like the only thing that people talk about whenever they see them. Like, who wants to truly be remembered by that? They have done everything in their power to try to rebuild their lives and deal with the trauma and physical scars that they have from that dreadful night in 2008. Okay, so I've done my makeup, but it's still a couple more things that I want to say about this case, because the Leicester Street murders left a huge impact on the city of Memphis, and it made people want to have more discussions about domestic violence, gang violence as well. So, you know, like something like that, to this day, the city of Memphis does not forget about things like that, you know. The house on Leicester Street was abandoned for many years, and eventually it was demolished. So it is no longer sitting there. But yeah, I just wanted to bring light to this case, because it's a case that I've been trying to find other true crime YouTubers talking about, and I've yet to find one. So I was like, you know, why not try something new and let this be my first video and topic as far as true crime goes. So yeah, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching that, and you know, comment more cases that you want me to talk about. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Keep hating, I'm popping regardless. Hater.